Nana Vidabdi Jagano Papano Dravyatmaka Karma Vitana Yoga Brahma, the Brahmanas, Ananam, the face, Chatra, the Kshatriya, Puja, the arms, Mahatma, Virat Purusha, Vit, Vaishyas, Uru, the thighs, Anguli Shita, under the protection of his feet, Krishna Varna, the Sudras, Nana, various, Abhidha, by names, Abhijagyana, the demigods, Upana, being overtaken, Dravya Atmaka, with feasible goods, Karma, activities, Vitana Yoga, performances of sacrifice. Translation. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Sudras under the protection of his feet. All the worshipful demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Purport. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures, but the suggestion made in this verse is that all these varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the Brahmanas, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Sudras, the labour class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains. But with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming material supplied by God's material nature. Human society therefore must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory, and that will bring about perfection of human society. The intelligent class of men, the Brahmanas, may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facilities to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Sudra class may offer their manual labour to all classes of human beings. The sacrifice recommended in this age, namely sacrifice of congregational chanting the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people in the world. Durve padimendasya skalapati katimuhu swakipayustadhanina shantu shantavalambana mamagyana tivrandasya chinanjana salakya Chakshur militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. We continue on with the description of the Virata Purusha. This is the fourth verse into it, fifth verse. O King, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, the omnipotent air is his breath. Passing ages are his movements, and his activities are reactions of three modes of material nature. O best amongst Kurus, the clouds which carry water are hairs on his head. Termination of days and nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, a reservoir of all changes. Rudradev is his ego. The horse, the mule, camel and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds situated in the belt zone of the Lord. And yesterday's varieties of birds are indicated in his masterful artistic sense. Madhu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence. Humanity is his residence. His musical rhythm and the demoniac soldiers are represented by his wonderful prowess. So, and then of course today's talking about the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Sudras, how they're representing his body also. So in all, this Virat Purusha is encompassing everything. So for one who cannot come to a personal, for one who has difficulty trying to understand the personal aspect of the Lord, this Virat Purusha is there to meditate upon. So just like Krishna says, I'm the breath in air. So Krishna, I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I'm the air that we breathe. So everything we do, Krishna is there, present. So there's nothing that we don't do that hasn't got Krishna in it. So this is the message that he's putting out, that this Virata Purusha, you can meditate on that. It's like people like to meditate on nature. They come up and down the hill, they look at the sunrise. Well, Krishna is amongst heavenly amongst, I forget the 10th chapter, but the sun, Krishna's the sun, Krishna's the moon when you're looking at the moon, full moon, phases of the moon. So Krishna's there in everything. So it's a good way for people to understand that we're just a part and parcel of the Supreme Person of God, and we're part of Krishna too. We're involved. Krishna is the super soul in our heart, and we're all the material energy that has been put together in this material world for our bodies. So while we are functioning in this world, there is a system. So the Virat Purusha's face, he's talking about the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas. So we have this Varna ashram system, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras, as we know. So this is a really good comparison that his face is the Brahmanas. So we usually say that the Brahmanas are the head of the body, they're like the intelligent class. The Kshatriyas are like the shoulders, they administer to the rest of the body and whatever for the body's protection, like soldiers and administrators. The thighs that support the body are the Vaishyas, the stomach, so Vaishyas provide food for the stomach, and the Sudras are the legs that support the whole rest of the three societies. So in this way this body functions. So this is the idea of the Varna and the ashram. If everything functions nicely, then the society progresses on the path of self-realization. So now society has lost its way because this is no longer present at the moment, because the Brahmanas, they're no longer with us anymore. Well, they are, but ineffective in this age of Kali, becoming potent. And so because of that, then the rest of the societies are a little bit topsy-turvy. You can see different societies, you can compare them, just like if you've got say you've got the capitalist society that's just intent on economic development, sense gratification. So you see this body with a really, really small head. Sometimes they have big armies, sometimes they don't, so small shoulders, really, really big fat stomach, and to have that situation, then they've got really, really thin legs, right? So this is, well, if you see that, you go, wow, this body's unhealthy, is it? So, well, if you look at the socialist system, then there's absolutely no Brahmins. The head's just totally shrunk, right? The armies are just prolific, like, you know, huge steroid, type shoulders and everything. And then the stomach's thin because they're also manipulating society, and the legs are huge. So you've got this head, no head, big shoulders, thin stomach, and huge legs, right, walking around. And that's another part. So every sort of society, socialism, anarchist, whatever, you can analyse like that. Is the body healthy? Well, no, it's not. The body's supposed to be perfectly in proportion. So to have that, you need the brahmanas, our society. So our society also functions in a sort of cyclical pattern. I was speaking about that yesterday. We have like the Dharma, the Artha, Karma and the Moksha. So the Dharma is reliant upon the brahmanas chanting the mantras and pleasing the demigods and so on and so forth. And then all these sacrifices are there. Like in Bhagavad Gita it says that by offering sacrifice to Lord Vishnu, then everything is, the wealth of the land is produced through rains and grains, and this way people can enjoy life. But, so that's Dharma. And then of course the second one, when Prabhupada used to talk about the founding fathers' Dharma, they went to America, found America on the strength of religion, and then from then economic development happened, and there's so much that it's easy to have economic development go out of control, if you don't have the dharmic brahmanas there to control it. And then when economic development starts to go out of control, then also Sanskarification starts to kick in, that people want the results of their wealth and attributes. So then they want to enjoy sensual pleasures, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and then the rules start to buckle. And so therefore the fourth stage, liberation, is almost impossible to attain because there's no instruction. It's all gone into the material platform. So then when that happens, the people who are striving for satisfaction in life, then they're in ignorance. It's just like Prabhupada also says, like, this is the fault of the philosophers and the scholars who give us all these instructions on how to achieve the ultimate goal of life, but they don't mention the fact that the goal of life is attain perfection, and to understand that you have to know what's body and what's soul. And if you're ignorant, if you strive for that and you don't have any knowledge of that, then you die in ignorance. And then when that happens, material nature chooses your next body, samsara, and you go through all the different species. You have no say in the matter. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to go outside and go, oh, I don't know where I'm going. It's a very fearful situation. And of course that fear factor is there for everybody in this world unless they sort of understand that principle of Aham Brahmasmi, I'm not this body. Just like Prabhupada describes the word apavarga, it's my favourite word, striving very hard, is a-pa-va-ma. 5 syllables, a-pa-va-va-ma. So, a means you work very hard, right? And you work so hard that you begin to foam in the mouth, right? You're foaming, so you're trying to get to where you want to go. So then the third one comes frustration, that actually you're running out of time because we're all limited. Our body's very, very, limited to so many years, and out of that body there's so many years where we actually get sick and we can't function as much. We're not what we used to be. So I'm not young anymore. I'm not young anymore. I can't do this. And then, of course, then the fear factor comes in that, oh, I haven't achieved what I want to achieve. And then comes the death. So when that happens, then of course there's a bewilderment, because death is the fear factor in the world. So if you actually understand what is spiritual life, then you actually surpass that fear factor, and it's not a big issue. It's there for everybody. It's painful, but the fact of the matter is that it's a stepping stone. Just like we step from one body into another body, well, we can step into a spiritual body if we know what to do. So the leaders of society today, they've, they're just saying, well, don't worry about that. Just worry about our nation, our body, our family, and then some people have got that saying, working for man is working for God. Have you heard that? Some famous politicians have said that. Well, working for man is working for God is a very dangerous path, because they're equating man's ideals with God's ideals. So if you haven't got the brahmanas at the top of the head, where is that society going? It's going down a very, very dangerous path. That's when there is no shastric instructions. So Prabhupada explains also that, like, sometimes when we sleep at night, we forget everything. You go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, and you've just 8 hours are gone, you've forgotten everything, right? So death is also the same thing, that when you die, you sleep for a few months, and then you wake up again in another body, right? So this is the eternal cycle. So that happens because we have attachments to this material world. We're attached to so many different things. So the principle is that we give up these attachments. And so the other orders of society, brahmachari, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So the brahmachari, that means you start your education young, right? So the sooner you start, the better it is. And then, of course, the grihastha, he performs all this worship according to the rules and regulations. And then there's the enjoyment. You can enjoy life according to the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. And the whole society is moving forward. And you're moving forward towards enlightenment and emancipation. Of course, vanaprastha, that means that you actually become detached from things. It doesn't mean that you detach yourself, doesn't necessarily mean you detach yourself from your husband or your wife. You can do it together. Just like one time I was on a padayatra, and we're in we got a fair way down the road. There's Ranagat, and then the one after that, what's the town up there? something, on the way to Calcutta from Mayapur, anyway. So we're there, and we were given some room to stay. And I was watching the shop down, they had a shop, it was a 4-story house, there was a shop, a chemist, he was a chemist, and we were on the 2nd floor, and on the top floor was his father and his mother. And I went up there, and his father was spending all his time worshipping the Shalagram Shila, and his wife was making garlands and getting flowers together, so there's a really lovely combination. So you can see that that is the path back to Godhead. It was lovely. So there are, just vanaprastha, that you actually go to the holy places, and then you give up your attachments. So living in the temples is also like a holy place. You can also a holy place that you can completely, or living near a temple. Sometimes you all can't live in a temple, but we live in communities outside the temples. But if we fix our mind on Radha Govardhan Dari, then we can work towards becoming liberated. So the opposite is, if we don't do that, then we begin to worry again. That fear factor comes in. When we get older, enjoyment is very hard, but we worry about the son's business, our grandchildren, what's happening to the kids, and we enjoy life through their we enjoy life through the children, whatever they do, whatever they succeed in, or the anxiety if they fail. So that way we get to keep our attachments to the material world. So therefore, to avoid this, the training should be early. If not being able to take, we should take, if we can't start when we're young and go through the Gurukul system, then we should start immediately from where we are right now, because that's saying, oh, I'll do it later. The trouble is with that there's Maya, there's that illusory energy, and the ropes of Maya, very, very strong, Sattva, Raja and Tama, and before you know it, you can get bound up and implicated in this material world, and once again, you find that you're sort of slipping away, just like you can see Krishna on the other side of the river, and I'll cross the river, but then the river gets wider and wider and wider, and then you can't cross over, right? You're stuck, right? So, therefore, it's good to sort of take Krishna consciousness straight away, particularly right now, because we talk about the dharmic process, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but there's a fifth liberation. We're discussing that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. On Sunday, Lord Chaitanya says there's a fifth liberation, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and Bhakti. Bhakti is the fifth liberation. So how good is that? The joys of devotional service. Because sometimes we forget that, just like the karmis, materialists, materialists, they strive for enjoyment in this material world, and they work so hard, as I said. So in the same way, we've got a higher goal. We're getting out of here, right? So we're attaining, not only that, but we're attaining prema due to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. That's the highest goal. So therefore, we should make an effort, really, at least as much as they do, because their enjoyment is very temporary, just like it comes and goes, and so much frustration. But devotional service is eternal. There's no frustration in performing devotional service because you get the benefits of it. Sometimes the illusory energy comes and sort of attacks us a little bit because we're not bulletproof. Even in devotional service we can't, it's not like hey, I'm a devotee now, Maya's going to leave me alone. Oh, sorry, that's not going to happen. Sometimes it's said that the higher you get, the more Maya tests you, right? I've heard that from Maharajas who sort of think, saying, well, I haven't tried, I haven't been tested until I did this. So sometimes the higher we get, the bigger the test. And then we get to that stage where, like maybe it's too hard, I'll give up. But don't forget that actually you came here, you wanted to join, and you want to become Krishna conscious, right? And then as you're going through the process, things get a bit tougher. Well, look, things get tougher in the material world as well. You think the rich businessmen don't have anxieties? Just have a look at them, drug, alcohol, rehabilitation. The richest man in Australia's had a breakdown and spent like 3 weeks in a mental asylum. Got $4 billion, but what does it matter? He's in a mental asylum. So therefore, it's hard for everybody. So just stay on the path. Don't, you just think, oh, okay, I'm committed to this. If I got faith in what I did, let's do it. Let's keep going, because actually you have the highest goal, prema, the intense, most intimate personality with Supreme Personality of Godhead, the intense, intimate association with the Supreme Personality of God is Sri Krishna. He's the most attractive. And the process of devotional service isn't that hard, really, when we look at what we do. It's sort of like, almost you could say every day's a party, like we just had a party half an hour ago in this ecstatic kirtan, right? And then we're going to have so much prasadam that's unbelievable. What do we want to eat? You know? It's like that. Where else do you get a smorgasbord every breakfast, you know, and every dinner? Right? And in the meantime, you've got the sadhu sangha of all the devotees. So much aesthetic association. So if you understand that, you understand the higher principles of bhakti, and then you can actually easily stay on this path and just endeavour. So the whole thing is that you endeavour to be better, because that's the nature of human beings actually, that we're born not to just sort of cash our chips in this material life and say, okay, I'm going to go all for it in this life and forget, you know, all the other principles, just cheat on a bit. But actually, our business in this life is to go upwards, to elevate ourselves. And if we do it properly, then we can attain love of Godhead. So in other ages, this was not possible, just like we're talking about in this sloka, we're talking about the Virata Purush. So Prabhupada starts with saying that monotheism is practically suggested here. So what is monotheism? It's practically atheism, right? So there's sort of just worship of the impersonal Brahman and his form of Virata Purush. So that is there, but Bhagavad Gita says that it's just the first stage of God realization. Brahmati Paramatmiti Bhagavan iti sabhyate. So people strive for this liberation, or mukti liberation, or other people worship the Lord in his forms as Vishnu and different incarnations, and they will attain Paramatmiti, that the same planet as Lord Krishna, but it's in a mood of awe and reverence, and it's very, very opulent. But the highest is Brahmati Paramatmiti Bhagavan, it is subjected, that the Supreme Person of God is beyond everything. Just example of Dhruva Maharaj, that he was so cut up by his father because he got ignored by his father, because his stepmother said, you can't sit there, you're not my son. So he got really angry and he went to the forest and he wanted a kingdom more powerful than Lord Brahma's, right? And so he meditated all these extraordinary austerities, and then finally Lord Vishnu came, and as soon as he saw Lord Vishnu, he said, I was just looking for pieces of broken glass, you know, that's all, because your form is just ultimately the most beautiful, exquisite, and it's almost imperceivable that tears were flowing out his eyes, and he was in just complete ecstasy. So this is the ecstasy of Bhagavan realization. So best thing for us to do is follow this process of Bhakti Yoga, and what is the way in which we can fix our mind, because the mind goes everywhere at every point in time during the day. That's why we can go to the moon by the power of the mind, but we don't really know what's on the moon, so we don't go there. But we can go to India, we can go to anywhere around the world. Just we can think if we've got relatives somewhere in Europe, when we've been there, we can sort of put ourselves in that place where we've been there. Our mind is there, you know. Whoops, you know, like, you know, it's nice, but you bring it back again. So if one fixes his mind on the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And every time he's chanting that, he thinks like, oh, energy of Krishna, please engage me in devotional service. Don't let me fall into this sort of illusory trap of Maya. So if we pray to Krishna like that, like a child praying to his mother, then everything will take place automatically in Bhakti Yoga. That's it. Any questions or comments? Yes.
And then the class, you mentioned about different classes, like the Brahmanas, Shudra. What if someone says, I don't want to be a Shudra and I want to act as a Brahmana? What happens then?
Oh, okay.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so we have the 4 classes of society: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. So these classes in the past, so there's sort of like, in the past there was sort of like that clear distinction whereby the Sudra, even though he wanted to be a Brahmin, he couldn't because he couldn't understand the Shastras, he couldn't read, and he didn't have the Brahminical qualities. So, okay, you want to be a Brahma, Brahma, Dharma, Tapasso, Cham, Shanti, Rajama, Mevacha. Here's all these qualities: cleanliness, austerity, resourcefulness, tolerance. So do that, So sometimes for a Sudra, austerities are really hard. They just sort of want the sort of immediate gain, the Shreya and prayer. Like, so this is normally most things are Shreya. What am I going to get out of it? Like, I want something at the end of this, right? The prayer is the long term, right? So therefore, this is the thought process of all these people, how it is, Or like a Kshatriya wants to be a Brahmana. There was that famous case where Karna, he was a Brahmana, right, in the Mahabharata. And he went to his spiritual master Parashuram to learn all the weapons because he was a Brahmana and a Kshatriya. And his spiritual master was very impressed with him because he went under the guise of a Brahmana boy, right? But he was a Kshatriya, a full-fledged Kshatriya, so it was all good. He was learning everything off his spiritual master, Parashuram. But then one day, Parashuram was just lying on his lap, just dozing on his lap, and this horrible insect, we can relate to that in Govardhana, horrible insects come up and start biting him on the leg, and then all his blood started oozing out, and he wouldn't move. He just stayed there because his spiritual master was on his knee. Normally a Brahmin will jump up. Brahmins can't stand pain. They're sort of totally wuzzes, That's usually a Brahmin, isn't it? So, all this blood is flowing out, and then Parashuram wakes up. He goes, what's this? By an insect, and you haven't moved. You've tolerated the pain. You're not a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya. I curse you to forget everything I taught you, So that's sort of like just another indication. So classes are what they are. But we are talking about, like the strict orders of Varna-ashram. In this day and age, we can't get confused with that because, like the Varna-ashram is there. We have some sort of semblance of the here on the farm. But as a Vaishnav, the most important thing about Varna-ashram is Devi Varna-ashram, that we have the worship of the Lord in our Varna-ashram society. If you don't have that, then it just becomes another ordinary mundane society and it goes haywire. So the Devi Varna-ashram society, the devotee is the highest, is the Vaishnava, right? And so the devotee sometimes has to fulfill the job of all the orders, not only he acts in the capacity of a Brahmin that he worships the deities, but then he'll go and, clean up around the place and get his hands dirty, clean the toilets or whatever, that happens, whatever has to be done in Krishna's service, the devotee does. But gradually, the idea is that we develop a Brahminical society that eventually people will become attracted and these orders will fall into place. Some people are happy just to sort of do the menial duties. They're happy. They don't want anything else. That is happening here already. I won't mention any names, but some people are just happy serving, right? So that is happening, right? So that's sort of like what we want to reinstitute, because Prabhupada said that. That's what he'd like to see. Okay? Alrighty. Jai, oh, glorious to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.